this today. Really excited for the conversation we'll get to have, and thank you all of the students who joined on. If you want to show your camera, unmute, engage in the conversation, that's what it's for. Anytime you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or raise your hand, whatever works best. Well, I guess this isn't, I'm used to Blackboard Collaborate, you can't raise your hand. If you want to put them in the chat or talk, you're more than welcome to. So we have some wonderful speakers with us today. If you guys just wanted to go through and share a little bit about your background, the organization you work at, your role, some of your current board involvement. Debbie, if you want to start us off.
Sure. So I'm Debbie Johnson. I am a proud 1984 graduate of Otterbein College at the time, now called Otterbein University. I am a former board chair of WELD back when it was a working board. While I had 2 years of the presidency, we decided to take it to more of a policy board and kind of set the structure as it is now. A little bit. It's a little different than what we thought, but it's definitely working. So I'm glad to see we finally got the Collegiate chapters up and running. That was one of our goals as well back in 2011, 10 years ago. So I am a director of a nonprofit leadership development organization called Ross Leadership Institute. And I have been on campus, except for up until a year ago. I do once a month doing some leadership hours. I am also a former city council member in Upper Arlington. I served 8 years. So that's a whole different kind of board. I am also on president of the Upper Arlington Rotary. Rotary, we have about 185 members in our Rotary Club, and I I've been on that board for 3 years, and then I'm also on the board of Friendship Village of Dublin, which is a retirement community on 33 just south of 161. It is a large community. It's a big board, and policy-wise, and I'm looking forward to talking to you guys and telling you about it.
Thanks, Debbie. You're definitely busy. It's good to stay busy. I see Karen joined. Hi, Karen. We're just doing introductions right now. Just what your background is, some information on the organization where you work or your role, current board involvement. If you want to go next. I think you're muted.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yay. All right. You'd think I'd be good at this Zoom stuff by now. So yes, my background is my career was in healthcare marketing and public relations. And so over 20 years, I worked both in for-profit and nonprofit organizations. And after that, I was home raising my twin daughters, Emma and Reese, and they are now off in college. While I was raising them, I also had the privilege of serving as First Lady of Ohio while my husband was governor. So that kept me really busy and involved in a lot of community organizations. And so in between, during working and before I was First Lady, I served on several nonprofit boards, both in healthcare and not in healthcare. I'm not currently serving on any boards, and that was a decision I specifically made after John's time as governor was done and I was no longer First Lady. Just decided that wasn't really how I wanted to spend my time right now. So I'm currently not serving.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Christina, I'd love to hear what you're doing and some of your background.
Hi, so my name is Christina Vera, and I'm actually the Director of Operations for a nonprofit organization here in Columbus called Femergy. And we work with middle and high school girls and entry-level women professionals. And so I get to work with our lovely board members every single day. And so just from the other aspect of working alongside of board members to achieve community goals and carry out the mission of the agency. In addition to, I've worked in the nonprofit sector for a little over 12 years, specifically working with youth, working with career development, some stuff related to healthcare and wellness. Prior to that, just really kind of exploring my options within corporate America, mostly in college admissions work. So that was my career right out of school, but I've been in the nonprofit sector for the past 12 years. I also am presently running for Columbus City School Board. So that would be my first opportunity as an elected official to be on a board serving the kids in Columbus City schools. So I'm learning a lot in that. I've been able to just really dive deeper into a lot of advocacy and policy work, which is something that I didn't really know I was super passionate about until a few years ago. So I'm excited to really dive deeper into that. And yeah, so I just, I love working with youth. That's my passion. In my free time, I guess you could call it, I have 3 kiddos. One actually does attend Otterbein University, so she's a freshman this year. And so I'm loving that, seeing her love Otterbein as much as I do. And then I have a middle schooler and a kiddo in 1st grade. So that's me.
Awesome. Way go cards. I'm here for that. And Elfie, we'd love to hear your background and what you're involved in.
Sounds great. Thank you. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Elfie DeBella. I'm Executive Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer with CAPA, which is the Columbus Performance, Lord have mercy, Columbus Association of the Performing Arts. And it's so exciting to be part of this. Prior to being here on the arts side, I was the CEO of YWC Columbus for 8 years. Prior to that, I was on the corporate world, so the for-profit world for Huntington Bankshares. And for the last 9 years that I was there, I was the Senior Vice President and the President of the Huntington Foundation. So what's unique in my background is that I've worked for the for-profit world and the nonprofit world, and I've led a nonprofit organization. And so it's kind of, you choose different boards to sit on and participate when when you're looking from the outside in, but I'm also, very experienced as it comes to what do you look for in a trustee and creating a board. So I currently serve on several boards. I'm a commissioner for the Columbus City Community Relations Commission. I'm, of course, part of this group. I'm also part of the International Women's Forum, the Ohio chapter, and then also something called the Greater Columbus Community Trust. And then prior, I was the chair of the Community Shelter Board, which is homelessness component. I'm sure you're familiar with that, as well as of the Columbus Metropolitan Club, but also served on many different boards. And it was always a combination of things that may have been job related or made sense or interests that I had, and then always something that would make me smile, like the Jazz Arts Group or something like that. That is just a sheer joy to be part of. So I look forward to our conversation tonight.
Thank you. Well, I think the most important part about finding a board is, well, what are you passionate about? And I guess my question to you guys is, what was it that initiated that interest? Was it your profession at the time? Was it just the mission of like the community you were serving? Or was it something you were just really passionate about? Anyone can answer.
Well, I have a thought on that. On the several boards that I was involved with over the years of my career, I think that you hit on something, and Elfie, you said, some were just for the pure joy. I think it's super important to find and then follow your passion, because I don't think you will be a good board member if you are not passionate about that nonprofit's mission, and you won't be able to authentically support that mission. And it will become more of a burden to you, I think, if it's something that you're not particularly passionate about, because it will require your time. You will be expected to, make use of your connections and you know, financial contributions, all these things become important when you're on a board. And I just think that the passion, like you said, is really, really important. But when you first start out, find something that you're passionate about.
I totally agree, Karen. It's definitely, you have to have a passion for the mission and a passion of wanting to give back and make a difference. And because it has to be a win-win. It has to be, you know, like you just said, you're investing your time, you're giving your guidance and your treasure. And for the nonprofit world, you know, they need to know that they have a committed board member who will show up to the meetings, who will be prepared with the materials and open doors. I mean, long gone are the days when you could be on a board and just have it as a resume builder. I mean, and the boards come in all different shapes and sizes. You know, we have the boards which is very high governance, and then some others that are more of a working board, you know, when a nonprofit may be smaller or starting out. But certainly, I think it's important for both sides to look at, is this something I want to give my time to? And also, is this the right person who will be there when we need her or him?
Well, I agree with both Elfie and Karen, and I admire Karen for being able to say no. Because unfortunately, that's not something that I've had, but also, so not only passionate, but when I started on the WELD board, I actually sought out, because I was going to be the only female on city council. And I knew I needed that that support system, and I wasn't feeling it. So I then joined the organization, and then somehow they asked me to be president of the board. But anyway, so again, that goes back to the you can say no, but I have a hard time with it. But so yeah, it's sometimes it's for what you do as well, and sometimes it's for your career. That's also a good move. I think you need to look at that as well.
You're right.
Did you have any thoughts, Christina?
No, I think the ladies, I mean, I would echo everything that they said. You know, passion is important. The time commitment piece, I can't overly emphasize that, because, you know, depending on the type of board, like Elfie mentioned, you know, it is time. There's a lot of time that's put into serving in nonprofit sectors, whether you're on a board or maybe just a committee. I would always encourage you to, you know, to really ask yourself why. Like, why do you want to serve? Because if you're having a hard time, like, really answering that, like, in full transparency, then it might not be the right fit. And it doesn't mean you don't care about the mission. Maybe you just donate. Maybe it's a one-time donation, or, you know, some sort of, because so looking at your skill sets and not feeling like you have to like super commit like a board position, because I'm passionate about so many things, but I don't have enough hours in the day to give like what a nonprofit might need. And so I just want to ask that you be transparent with yourself. Like, we can't always be everywhere. So if we're going to carve out this time monthly or bi-weekly to serve in that capacity, just making sure you're truly vested and it's something that you feel 100% comfortable with.
We're definitely seeing a shared passion. And, you know, you mentioned the word mission, Christina. So when it comes to board service and the organization that you're sitting on and working with, what is one of the biggest takeaways you've seen in the community you were trying to impact, whether it was an event that you remember, or what scenario did you see really a large impact in your community through the mission of the organization?
Yeah, like, so for me, and this was a few years back, I participated in United Way's Project Diversity program. I was a part of Cycle 20, and there was a day that, you know, they set up for us to visit a bunch of local nonprofit organizations. And it was interesting because I was able to go into food pantries, after school programs, the soup kitchens, and I was really able to see and serve and look at these different missions, not just from what they show on their website, right? Like, we can read a mission statement, but until we physically go there and we feel the people that they're serving or the impact that they're making, for me, graduating from that program, honestly, is where I decided I no longer wanted to work in corporate America, that I wanted to serve in the nonprofit arena. I didn't know in what capacity, but just seeing what these people were doing every single day, I felt like it was purposeful work. And at that time, I was already questioning, like, okay, yes, I make great money. Yes, I have insurance and, you know, all the things that they tell you, like, want when you know, grow up, I guess you could say. But I didn't feel like I was impacting the world the way that I knew that I could. And so when I went on that tour with Project Diversity and I saw the kids that I got to help, like, get them school supplies, and I got to serve in a soup kitchen, like, for me, it just touched me in a way that I knew that I couldn't just work like I didn't experience that moment. And so I think that things that you may not think will change the trajectory of your life could very well do that. So just being open to just maybe volunteering for a day before you make a commitment like that, and just like trying different things before you apply for something as big as like a board position.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think it's really cool that an experience like that could change what you want to do for the rest of your life. So did anyone else have any other impacts in the community they had just through the mission of the organization, something that really stood out to them or was significant during their board experience?
I think a lot of times when you do serve on a social services board, you have that opportunity, you know, the community shelter board with the homelessness or the YWCA, you really have an opportunity as a board member to experience the mission come alive. Whether you go and have your meetings or you visit one of the shelters we have in this community, or you hear the testimony of a you know, formerly homeless woman or family, it's very rewarding in many ways. And just like Christina said, it makes you be part of it. And I think you don't mind putting in the long hours and whatever, because you can really make, you know, you're making a difference as being part of this board. So yeah, I think it's very impactful, especially with social service organizations.
One thing that I wanted to mention, and a lot of boards are very strategic. So they usually have strategic plans that may look out 5 or 10 years. And it may be such that you're working on something that you may not be on the board when you realize it. So, or when it comes to fruition. And, but again, that work has to be done. There are goals that you can hit along the way. But, you know, especially with city council, I mean, I look at that now, and some of the things they're doing now was put into motion, you know, 10 years ago. So, you know, again, WELD is another great example. You know, like I said, the chair of the committees were basically on the board, and now we have a whole different kind of a structure. So think about that too. You're, you know, sowing all these seeds that then maybe they may not be realized right away. So if you're one of those goal-oriented people that, you know, have to have that instant gratification, board work is at the 50,000 foot view, really.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think Christina said something important too. You know, I think a lot of times the first step, especially when you are younger, is to volunteer for an organization. Mm-hmm. Not only do you learn about the organization and so forth, but it really gives you an opportunity to meet people, especially as you're looking or approaching that organization to maybe become a board member. But it's just a nice opportunity to give back, but also learn about an organization and what they stand for.
Yeah. Did you have any additional comments, Karen?
I was thinking along the lines of what Elvie just said. I was remembering back to early in my career. I had a wonderful employer. She ran a public relations firm, so we billed by the hour, right? So every hour that we weren't working, we weren't billing. But this woman had a program where there were so many hours a quarter that we were given to go out and volunteer with an organization. So maybe at that early point in my career, I wasn't ready to sit on a board, but I was able to go out and learn an organization a little bit from the bottom up, or sometimes it was from, working on an annual event or whatever it was. But I mean, she wasn't stupid. I was making connections that one day will maybe be useful or helpful to the agency, but it also allowed me to learn about a couple of organizations from the bottom up. And on one of them, I did eventually end up serving on the board, but after volunteering and learning more about the organization and realizing that it was a passion for me and a good fit.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something I've seen, especially with students, is where do I start?
Mhm.
I think volunteering is a great starting point, really getting involved in the mission. So once you feel like you've found an organization and you take the time to learn about the mission, you're passionate about it, and you get placed on the board, what does that look like? Alfie, you mentioned going to the shelters, and I know it takes time, obviously, but what does the routine of board governance really look like?
And that's a great question. And each organization will probably have a different board governance, depending on what they do, what their mission is, how big they are, how long they have been in existence. So, for example, you will tend, on average, you will have a certain amount of full board meetings where the whole board comes together. That can be on a quarterly, or it can be 6, maybe 4 to 5 meetings tends to be average. And then you also have executive committee meetings. And then once you serve on a board, you will always have that opportunity to serve on a board committee. And that board committee, of course, we have the executive committee, which are, some of the president and the vice chair and whatever. But also you have other committees like the finance committee, the development committee, the marketing committee, and on it goes. And so each board member will have an opportunity, obviously, to be part of the organization by showing up for the board meetings. Some of like for Kappa, for example, which doesn't happen everywhere, all of the executive committee meetings are open to all the trustees. For other organizations, that might only the executive committee meets together, but in this particular case, they're wide open. And that's because it's a very complicated company because of all the different things we do. And so they want their board members to be entrenched of everything that is going on so they can have a better understanding of the whole organization and be a better board member. But then depending on, as a trustee, what kind of committee you serve on, you would have those meetings. And then you also look, of course, for the board members who will participate in events. Most nonprofit organizations tend to have fundraisers, or, whether it's a big gala or luncheon or, a drive. And so you look for that participation there. And of course, opening doors and like I said earlier, be prepared when you come to the meetings to be in the moment and share your knowledge. Anybody else, feel free to add on. I'm sure I forgot something.
Well, as I was just before I got on here, so I on my the board, Friendship Village at Dublin, I have a finance committee meeting tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. So I have a big packet. It's actually on an iPad, but I have to review it. And so I have to look over those and formulate any questions. So there is homework. And so it's not only the board meetings, the committee meetings, if you have those, but it's also preparation, because I feel like if you're on a board and you have the privilege to sit there, you need to do your homework. And I think that's an important thing. When I was running for city council, that was one of the things that I ran on. I promised to do my homework. I promised to research and go out and get different opinions and have all of that. And that resonated with a lot of people. So make sure you have time to do your homework too. That's part of it.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point when it comes to students thinking about what is this going to look like? Is it just meetings, or is there homework involved? You had something you wanted to share, Christina?
Yes, and I think too, just depending on the type of board, whether it's a working board or an advisory board, every nonprofit has a different structure. So I think that's an important question when you're interviewing or researching organizations that you might want to serve, just figuring out, you know, what type of board process they use, whether it's a committee process, because each one of those positions will look a little different. Working boards generally are just that. There's a lot of like hands-on. It's a little more, I think there's a lot more moving pieces sometimes with working boards, just because you're involved in so many different things, whereas sometimes with governing or advisory, you're more so like voting, reviewing documents. But sometimes with working boards, you might be at programming, you might be, you know, out collecting items for a donation drive, you might be calling donors for a fundraising drive, which you probably still will do that on the other side, but there's literally a lot more moving pieces. So just depending on what you like and what you have capacity for, I just would encourage you just to look at like what type of board position you feel like would be best suited for you. And, you know, just being open, I think too, having to be, just having the power just to say, hey, this is what works best for me in terms of like communication style, because you will get a lot of emails and there'll be a lot of meetings. And I think learning kind of what your communication preference style is going to be super helpful for like the president of that board or the executive director, because you're going to start getting a lot of different information sent to you, and you want to be able to just have open dialogue of like how you best work and how you best receive that information.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of different kinds. So on the subject of that, for a student, what do you think is the best way to prepare so that when it comes time to sit on a board, whether you're governing or you're sitting or it's an advisory council, what are the best steps students can do now to prepare themselves for that kind of leadership?
So I have a couple of things, ways. First of all, and we'll get into this, but Robert's rules, understand Robert's rules, because almost every board is governed by that. I have a couple that I'm on advisory boards that are very, very informal, but we all still have an agenda. But several boards, and especially my council experience, I know school boards are like this as well. It's Robert's rules. And so you have to understand those. And I'm gonna get on my soapbox, because I've been on my soapbox about this forever when I talk to young women, and it is no finance. Understand how to read a profit and loss statement, understand what a balance sheet is, know what assets and liabilities are. It doesn't matter whether you're in the nonprofit, for-profit, you know, government, or, you know, in government or in education. We all live and die by budgets. So understand how to read that budget. And as far as getting involved, one of the ways that helped me being an Otterbein grad is I know that you have lots of different councils on campus. Get involved that way. I think I was on the Senate, I was on the Activities Council. I can't remember them all over the years, but and it's been a while. So so do that, get involved that way. That'll give you some great experience. And I know when I was at Otterbein, sororities were, I think, bigger, or at least there were more people there, but I probably learned more being in my sorority and being in leadership in my sorority, as far as governance, how to run a meeting, and dealing with people, because you have all different kinds. Trust me, when you're trying to get 60 young women together to go do something, it's challenging. And I learned a lot from just being in the sorority. And I know, because I've talked to, I think Melissa about this, is there's some shadowing as well, you know, be a part of that too, you know, and you'll be able to learn that way. But those are some of the things that I would suggest that you do.
And I would also add, you know, LinkedIn is a powerful tool. And I think that you know, even as a professional, I didn't really recognize the power that LinkedIn possessed. So if there are organizations or even companies that you feel like you definitely have an interest in, they tend to have different events and they post them on the LinkedIn profile. So just research, you know, it's going back to what everyone, I think kind of the common theme is research, right? Do your homework. And so utilizing tools like LinkedIn just to see kind of like ways that you can get engaged, ways that you can volunteer to learn more. Because I'm also all about a way that you can like either volunteer or intern, just so you can kind of see what's behind the scenes of those organizations or corporations. Because a lot of times I think, you know, until you're there, you're like, wow, this is very different, or wow, this is exactly what I wanted and I'm super excited. So utilizing things like Handshake. I know Handshake has a lot of more so internship opportunities, but a lot of these corporations and nonprofit organizations utilize platforms like Handshake to find talent for their agencies. I don't know how much of that is used for board. However, I think it's a great way for a potential organization or corporation to know who you are. And even if it's just volunteering for just a short, whatever your free time could look like, I think it's just a great way to start building those relationships, because a big part of serving on nonprofits is about relationship building. Whether you're building relationships for the people that you serve or building relationships that your people you're serving alongside, it's important that you're building relationships. So whether that's on campus or shadowing or just getting out in the community after COVID goes away, obviously, but getting out and just volunteering and just meeting people. And then from there, those connections will continue to build out for you.
I think you're absolutely right. The volunteering is a key part, and the connections and the getting to know people. And when you're in the nonprofit world, when you look to recruit potential individuals as trustees, you also look at their background. You know, you look at your expertise. I know, for example, the Short North Stage has a very amazing board, but they have a lot of expertise because they only have 1 or 2 staff members. So the board is made up of marketing experts, of social media experts, of finance experts, and on it goes, because they're doing a lot of work. So depending on where your career is and what your background is, what your strengths are, what you bring to the table, nonprofit leaders will look at that too. Or, you know, the governance and nominating committee of a board tends to do that, where they try to recruit individuals who fit into the makeup of the board. I think most nonprofit organizations utilize a matrix, you know, where you list all of your board members, and you kind of, you know, you want to have a diverse board, and that's diverse in age, male, female, you know, ethnicity, on it goes, and as well as skill level. And so that'll be a big part too, as you, you know, as you have those conversations and express your interest. You want to have the organization be familiar with you, the great work you do, but they may also look at your experience and what you bring to the table. And I think boards are looking more and more for younger individuals, trustees, to bring that younger age group to the table, to, you know, because of the creativeness and all of that they bring to the table.
Yeah, I like the way you worded that. It's what can you bring to the table? I think a lot of times students feel intimidated. They want to sit at the table, but they don't know how. And I think asking yourself, what can I bring? And, you know, even you were saying, Christina, utilizing tools like LinkedIn, even like reaching out to a company you're passionate about, like, oh, this Femergy group's really awesome. Maybe I could reach out to Christina. Maybe she'd love to chat over Zoom for a little bit. I know COVID's a little different now, but, you know, I'd love to, I mean, I met you at your Harlem Ball you had last spring before COVID. And I remember you were talking with the students wanting to network, like, let's get coffee, let's get together, let's talk about the things you're passionate about. And I think that what can you bring to the table is also accepting you have a place at the table to do that.
Absolutely. And if there's not a place, you create one, right? Because that's the world we live in right now. And I think Debbie mentioned it earlier, where she, you know, served in a pretty male dominated board setting. And I think sometimes that's a little like intimidating, you know, walking in and you're the only female. But that's an opportunity, you know, to really just say, you know what, I deserve to be here. And even if you're still trying to figure out, like, what's my skill, what can I give, you know, just showing up, just show up. And then from there, you know, just being able to listen and to take notes. And, you know, I don't know how many nights I would write a word down I heard in a meeting. I had no idea what it meant, but I was like, this must be important because I've heard it now twice. And I would go home and I would research it, because it's just little things like that as you are growing. And it's okay to say, like, I'm sorry, can you clarify? Like, that's not something I'm familiar with. Like, don't feel like you can't ask questions or you're supposed to know it all, because no one person knows it all. Like, we all individually bring something to the table. So just knowing that you deserve to be there and that, you know, you will figure it out, but also that preparation piece is key. So just constantly, you know, working towards something every single day, even if it's just expanding your vocabulary, like a new word a day, but little by little, you'll start to really figure out your rhythm, but not being intimidated if you're the only one.
Remember, there's, you know, there's the front door, but there are also side doors as well on how to get in. So use those too. It might be somebody you know, it might be some other avenue that gets you where you need to be. So.
Yeah, that's very true. Networking can be key for that reason. Well, on the topic of preparing, do you feel like there's a specific age point, whether in your career or, you know, as a college student, as an emerging young professional, when is a good time to start looking into board governance and what that can look like? Do you feel like there's a certain time, or do you feel like it's more based on your ability to be passionate about it and take the time to do it?
I think for me personally, I don't think there's an age parameter around anything in life. I think every individual just knows their capacity. And so I think, you know, I had the honor of sitting with Judge Jameson, who just was recently reelected well, she's newly elected to a different position. But talking with Judge Jameson, she decided to go to law school in her 40s. So she was in the insurance industry, a male-dominated industry, for like 15 plus years. And in her 40s, she's like, I think I'm going to go to law school. And now she's a judge. And so it's just, I don't think age has anything to do with what you want to achieve. I think it's just about being true to who you are and understanding, like, you're in a journey, and every day it might look a little different, and every day you're not going to be passionate. You're going to show up to those board meetings, you're going to be exhausted because this is your 12th meeting of the day, and you might be a little low on the passion, but you have a commitment that you've made. And it's about digging deeper on days where you might not be as passionate, but you've committed something to your community, you've committed to yourself that you were going to do this. So I think we're constantly like beating ourselves up a little bit about having to have all of certain things by a certain age or a certain time in life. And I think everybody's journey is different. And days that you're not as passionate about something, those are days where you might need to journal a little bit or have coffee with like a mentor or a friend who's going to help remind you of how awesome you are. And this is all just part of that growth process. So I think passion is important, but I think we can all agree that like sometimes passion is just not there and we need a little scoop of something else, and just being honest about what you need and going after that.
Yeah, and having different, again, a lot of boards, or at least some boards, will have will want some expertise. I remember one of the first things that I had volunteered for was actually a school levy. So I had worked for a PR advertising company that did political advertising. So I knew how to do a lit drop. Or organize a lit drop. I knew how to organize a walk and talk. And I went in there and, you know, these people who were twice my age said, what are you doing? How do you know how to do this? And I had to explain it to them. But again, doing the job and just saying, yes, I can come in here and do this, you know. And, there, you know, I know as women, sometimes we don't feel as self-confident as we should. And I think that's something that we all have to work on. And I've seen it. Like I said, been working with young adults for a long time. I've mentored many, but I just, you know, if you have that expertise, you don't have to be arrogant about it, but just, you know, I can do this. I've got this. This is how I'm going to do it. And they went, oh, okay, go do it. You know, so, but again, I had to step up and say, I can do this. And I think that's sometimes difficult.
Alfie, Karen, did you guys have any comments?
I think everything that's been said is spot on. And I think you have to be, like we said before, you have to be honest with yourself to see what you can bring to the table. Do you have that honest conversation with whoever you're talking to about joining the board? What are the expectations, whether it's time, whether it's financial, and most boards will obviously make accommodations for younger, trustees when it comes to board dues or whatever. But I think you have to be honest with yourself because you don't want to take a seat at the table when you're not showing up, when you're not giving of your time, and so I think sometimes you yourself know when the time is right, that you want to make that commitment, and that's why it's sometimes good to, like we said, volunteer first, or maybe you ask to serve on a board committee. Many organizations have, while they have board committees that are made up of trustees, many have them that are trustees as well as, individuals who are not on the board. And that's a good opportunity to give back as well. Or you volunteer, you raise your hand to say, I'd like to help with a special event, to kind of give you a feeling for what does it feel like to have a commitment that you need to be there and show up and help out. And so sometimes it's just that, having that, going with your inner gut, with your intuition to say, I'm ready, or maybe I'm not quite ready for such a big commitment.
And sometimes if you just show up, they'll recognize you.
Absolutely.
And sometimes they'll say, hey, this position's, open, and again, it is that showing up. It's that being present and putting that in. That's how many of them, many of the board positions actually get filled. So.
Well, speaking on the subject of commitment, I know something that can vary too is also financial commitment. So how can young people, college students, get past some of these? Or, what sort of recommendations do you have to get, those steps you need to move forward on nonprofit board with some of the financial commitments involved?
Yeah, it's a valid question. And I think there's two ways to go about it. First of all, like I said earlier, a lot of nonprofits do have a lower rate, or they raise the money from other trustees or other resources to allow somebody who is younger, who does not have the earning power, to be part of the board as a same standing member of the board, but they have a smaller commitment. Instead of $2,000, it might only be $100 or $150, depending on where they are in their life. But also, if they don't offer that, I think you, as somebody who wants to join the board, should have that conversation and just say, I am passionate about this. I would do a great job, but I just do not have the resources right now. Is there another way? Is there something that can be done? And most nonprofit organizations will say, yes, let me look into this. We have so many trustees who are donating money to, just to allow somebody younger to be part of the board. And because somebody younger on the board is a valuable addition to the board. You want that broad perspective of creative thoughts, younger thoughts, rather than, the more seasoned individuals. And so absolutely, just be open about it and say, I cannot afford the $2,000 or whatever a year. Is there something else that can be done?
And I know I've sat on boards as well. It's while they want 100% participation for giving for the board, it could be a very small amount. And sometimes it's the commitment is to give or raise an X amount of money. So you may not have to give it from your own treasury, but you maybe there are other people that you can ask. So I think that's a conversation to have as well.
My experience echoes that on the several boards that I sat on. It was always a goal to have 100% giving. Just in my experience, I don't remember ever being told exactly what to give, but I think the important thing when you're researching and finding your passion and deciding which board you would like to try to be on, or an organization to be a part of, is to understand that there are financial expectations. So have that conversation. And I think the other thing to understand is that, and this goes back to why I think you need to be passionate about your choice, is that they will want you to use your connections. And I don't mean use in a bad sense, but I mean have access, bring your connections to their table, help the people that you're connected with see and value your organization's mission, and perhaps become a part of it in one way or another. So whether that's a financial connection or otherwise, but I think be aware of the financial commitment, the commitment of time, and the commitment of, well, the expectation that your connections can be accessed are things to be aware of.
Yeah, I think those are all very true points. I know sometimes it can be awkward to ask if you're like, I can't afford this, but I feel like if you're really showing the organization that you're giving the time and you're passionate about it, they're going to help in any way they can. And especially with a lot of boards looking to diversify, especially with having, more of a young professional, I think not being afraid to ask is the first step. Well, we have, about 10 more minutes left. I wanted to open up if any students had any questions, make sure this is a conversation too. You guys can put them in the chat or unmute, whatever you feel comfortable doing.
I do have a quick question. I know one of the special opportunities that Otterbein has is that you can run to be a student trustee on our board of representatives. So how would you recommend, like, if that is an opportunity we do want to take advantage of, preparing for that role specifically?
Go have coffee with one of the student trustees now. Ask them their path. Yeah, absolutely. Find out who the other trustees are. Because I know it's faculty and staff, I believe, right? It used to be, but
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So go find out their story. Tell them you're interested. Here's the thing: you got to ask for it too. Say, this is what I want. I want to be a student trustee, and I think people will be willing to help.
That's a great question, Hannah. Were there any other questions? Or, if you're looking at a specific organization or company and don't know the best course of action to get initiated, to get the ball rolling, I know that can be sometimes difficult.
I will ask a question, and Karis, this kind of echoes what you were just saying. So some of you may have already identified organizations, but I'd love to hear from our panelists what the advice is if you have no idea where to start. Where do you start looking for nonprofit opportunities and starting at the baseline of volunteering? What are some good resources that you found for our students who want those opportunities but may have not identified the organizations yet?
There are really quite a number of resources. There's GuideStar, which is online. There's also the Columbus Foundation, and they have this amazing, I can't remember what it's called right now, but it's like all the organization, all the nonprofits that you can give money to, and it's the majority of, a lot of them, and it really describes them what they do and what their mission is and so forth. So there's a way to do a lot of research. United Way actually has a program that helps you be placed on boards. So I think they still do that. And so there's lots of different opportunities to learn about different nonprofit organizations just by going online. And I think it's something where you have to think about, what are you passionate about? Are you passionate about social services, eliminating racism, hunger, homelessness? Are you more interested in working with, Cancer Society, American Heart Association, or are you passionate about the arts? And if you're passionate about all of it, that's even better, right? because they intersect so many ways. But it's great opportunity to find out about different nonprofits. But I think you kind of almost have to start with what makes sense to you, to kind of get a head start, to kind of see what makes you tick. You know, what's of interest to you.
Yeah, and I would also look into City Pulse. It's so the Columbus Young Professionals Group. They host a series of like different YP events almost every single month. But City Pulse is a newer initiative of theirs, specifically highlighting nonprofit organizations. So they put out a publication once a year. I think this is probably their second or third publication. But I think it's a great way just to learn more about nonprofit organizations as well. So I know CYP is geared towards YPs, which I think would be just something you would get to meet other people and then also learn more about nonprofit work specifically. But to Elfie's point, just really figuring out like what are you interested in? And then from there, trust me, it's there. Like whatever it is, we have it here in Columbus. That's what I love about Columbus. There's so many amazing things that happen here. And just going back to LinkedIn, I think you could just type in the word art in LinkedIn and something like it'll pop up. Art Columbus, it'll pop up. So just utilizing a lot of like just the social media platforms you already have. Even with Instagram, like the filters, like you can just put 614 art or 61 and like different things will just populate. So just utilizing the platforms you already have. And then you have so many amazing resources on campus, like just what Melissa does and the WELD Collegiate. I mean, so many people who they're there to help you. So I think just asking for what you need. I think Debbie said this, is like, just tell us what you need. And certainly like anybody would be willing to help you. And that's what all of this is about tonight, is just being able to say, hey, I have somebody I can connect you with. I definitely, Elfie's at Kappa. You love the arts, she's your girl, so just figuring out who do you know, and then we can definitely connect you.
And I think there's a couple of organizations in Central Ohio. One is BESA, that you can go online, and this is just for volunteering, but you can go on and volunteer. They have a lot of different opportunities. And I know there's an app, and I think it's called The Point. Is that right? That's another one that you can go on. And so if you really don't know exactly what you want to do, this is a way to an easy way to do this, is because you sign up online and you just show up. And sometimes, like we said, just showing up is most of it.
Another great organization is the Columbus Metropolitan Club, and they have weekly forums every Wednesday. And they're virtual, I think, other than maybe a handful of people. But normally you would go there for lunch, but you can also just participate or watch afterwards. But the point is that every week they put on a different forum with a different topic. And it's just really state of the art. And it's really what is happening in Columbus, what are concerns, what is going on. And they always have great panelists or keynote speakers who are just really, well versed in what they're talking about. And so it gives you really an opportunity to not only know what's going on, right, but you also have the opportunity to hear and learn about whether it's individuals or organizations that they represent. And so it's a great way. And of course, it's great networking when you do go.
I still use that.
Oh gosh, yes, right?
Are they
I'm old.
Are they still meeting in person with COVID, or is that online now?
I think it's definitely on virtual, but I think they have a few like the panelists, and then they have some tables throughout the. I can't think where it's being held right now.
The Boathouse.
Right.
It used to be at the Boathouse.
Like people there?
Still is.
I'm sorry.
Is it at the Boathouse? And I wonder do they have student membership opportunities or discounts?
I don't know. That's a great question. We'll have to ask Jane Scott.
If they don't, it'd be a good idea for them.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely something to look into.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to thank you all for your time today. I've been interning with Ohio Prison Arts Connection, which is a small arts nonprofit here in Columbus for the past 5 months, and I've learned a ton about the nonprofit sector that I didn't even realize that I had an interest in. And so I'm now applying to internships at some other organizations that are doing remote internships. And I just wanted to thank you all for your time. I found it really valuable this past hour.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, seriously, thank you for your time. And I know I wrote down some of the different ways to get involved, so we can try to send those out to our list of students, just saying, hey, these are different resources. I think it's important to also share those as much as possible from our Collegiate chapter perspective, because that is usually the biggest question is, where do I begin? How do I start? And, I got 4 minutes left. Does anyone have any other comments or questions? I want to make sure you had the time to do that. Or any of our speakers, if you guys had any additional comments you just wanted to share. Or...
No, I mean, once COVID comes up, life will get easier. I promise you guys. I miss hugs and I miss coffee, having coffee with people. Although I'm fully vaccinated, so that's a good thing. So call me anytime. I'm happy to go out. Yeah, it has. I can't imagine having to spend a year in college like the last year that you guys have. So hats off to you. You will be more resilient because of it. Obviously will build character, and you'll be able to go with the flow so much easier, because we've all had to be so much more flexible in the last year. And so my hat's off to you for surviving it and still being interested. So.
Yes.
I agree. Keep going. You all are doing great. I mean, we're almost out of the woods, and I know it has not been easy. My daughters are juniors in college, and I tell them the same things that Debbie just said, and they roll their eyes at me. So I see you out there rolling your eyes at her, but don't roll your eyes at her. You are getting more resilient. You're more nimble, fleet of feet. You're going to have skills that we never had because you had to go through this. And I'm sorry that you had to go through this, but you'll come out on the other end much better.
Yeah, I'm sorry I sounded like a mom, but I am. I actually have kids way older than you now. So,
so yeah, I would just echo what everybody said, and please reach out to us or me. It's just, we're happy to help. I keep saying we, but I think it's true. We would be happy to help.
Would you ladies feel comfortable if we sent out an email to everyone who was on today, just with your basic contact information? So if they wanted to network, they can.
Absolutely.
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 Well, and thank you to all of you for making the time to be here.
Yes.
That means a lot too. So thank you.
Absolutely. And find me on LinkedIn. I expect some LinkedIn invitations. We've talked a lot about platforms today, so I've been looking at the names a little bit in the windows. So I would love to connect on LinkedIn, because I think it's important. Like I said, like, just start building your network, and through those relationships, you'll continue to find coaches and mentors and people who want to pour into you to help you, just grow. And so I'm excited and thankful to also be here tonight.
Yeah, that's one of the ways I built my LinkedIn, network, is that I would go on every day or every other day and just link with a couple of people, and then those grow. But you have to, it's almost like it's got to be a habit. You've got to keep at it. So, but that's the way to grow your LinkedIn network, is to keep doing that every day.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for your time and insight. It was all very valuable, and we'll make sure we share these with the other students who are part of our chapter so that they can utilize the same skills that you've shared. So I got 6 o'clock. Thank you again. Have a wonderful night. Hopefully we'll all be in touch with each other soon.
Thank you, and great job.
Thanks, Kira.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Facilitating.
Bye.
So much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Good seeing you.